and welcome to the very first episode of the Welcome Journey podcast. And today we have a really special guest. It's Roxy from the Equality Diversity team from Lancashire County Council, who's going to go through a detailed journey of an asylum seeker family or a student who's looking to start their educational journey. So without any further ado, welcome to the podcast. I'd love to know a little bit about your team, what you do, and how the journey for an asylum seeker family or student first begins.
Brilliant. Thank you for that introduction, Nital. So I work, as Nital has said, for the Equality and Diversity team, which is part of education improvement at Lancashire County Council. And we work with children, young people, families and schools all across Lancashire, trying to help children and young people, but particularly those with diverse backgrounds, maximise their potential, really. And we did notice a few years ago now that there were some children and young people who were new to country who wanted to start school but weren't managing to get school places or were waiting quite a long time to get school places. So it was a real shame because they were missing opportunities to access education, and we knew they wanted that education, but somehow they weren't managing to navigate the system. So we set up a facility, and originally one in Burnley. We followed that with the one in Preston, which we'll talk about today. But this was to support people who are new to country or new to Lancashire and help the families access education for their children and young people. So we do now, from that, have a centre called Kelly, which stands for Central Lancashire Learning Information Exchange, and it's located in Stonygate, Preston. Anybody who's new to Lancashire, whatever background they're from, is very welcome here. We can help in a number of ways, but the main focus is helping the children and young people and their families access education.
I mean, it sounds brilliant, and I love the fact that you've explained how Kelly was, born, and understanding the needs of, our community. For an asylum seeker family, there's major concerns they come with, where do we start? How do you do an application? Language barriers, cultural barriers, even traveling here. And I know Stonygate is in the heart of Preston. Can you go through a little bit about, when they come, what do they need to bring? Who do they come with? Is it an appointment based? And what documents? How does it all start? Just to get rid of them apprehensions.
Yes. So just talking about the location first of all. So Preston now is quite a big city, isn't it? So we really thought hard about trying to find the best location. It won't be on everybody's doorstep, but it is very near to the bus station. So hopefully it is only one bus journey. Whatever area you live in Preston, you'll be able to get a bus in. So we tried to make it central so that it was easier, whatever neighbourhood you were living in Preston. There is an appointment system. So you can email. We do share an email address in our flyer, and you can email and book an appointment, or you can ask for help with that. If you emailed even in another language, we would get it sorted and interpret that, because we do have access to translation and also to interpretation. So if you did come here and you're worried about the fact, well, how do I communicate? First of all, the staff at Kelly are wonderful and friendly and helpful, which is really important. Just welcoming somebody with a smile, that's that international language, isn't it? It's really important.
Absolutely.
So please be ensured that you'd be welcome here. But also we can access telephone interpreting as well if they don't speak the language, because the staff themselves are bilingual. So quite often they can communicate with people who come in, but they do access telephone interpreting as well. And we normally find we can get most languages really quite quickly as well. So that's the first thing, that you're very welcome. You should be able to get a bus. We're near to the bus station, and we will make sure we can communicate with you using interpreters if we need to. In terms of what you need to bring with you, it's best if you can bring some documentation with you, because that allows us just to get those details. It's not that we're verifying anything. We're not checking anything about the documentation. It's really just getting the details of the names, addresses right, dates of birth. Spelling. That's another, from practical experience, that's another one that's really important. So it is helpful if you bring that documentation along as well. So that allows us to start you off then as a family and get your children and young people starting off applying for school places. There are quite a few complications in the UK with school places. In a lot of countries, the local school will get bigger and get smaller depending on the demand from the local population, and they will just squeeze the children into the classroom, and that's the way it will work. So that is different in the UK. So sometimes that can be quite difficult for families to understand, because they think, why can't I go to the school across the road? In the UK, schools have a published admissions number, and they won't normally exceed that number. So they may be full. So although you can see a school maybe across the road or in the next street from where you live, it isn't always possible to get a place there. And that's the same whatever community or background you come from. It's just the way the schools work here.
Yeah, I think that's really, so I'm so sorry to interrupt. I think that's really important because, you know, a lot of parents may have that expectation. Oh, this is the perfect school I want. But, you know, like you said, you know, if they've got the right amount of numbers, or they can't go over, you know, there are other options that you can explore, the schools within the vicinity, or you know, where they can actually fit that child in.
Yes, and I think that's difficult to understand if it's a different way than the education system has worked in the country that you've come from as well, but it is a difference here. So it may mean that the school place that you are offered ends up being a bit further from home than you maybe would, you know, normally have in the country that you've come from as well. It is seen as being reasonable to travel up to about 2 miles here. And again, this is from children and young people for any background or any community, whether you're born in the UK or not. It isn't, you know, it's not a difference. It's the same for all. So there may be a bit more travel expected than you are used to as well.
Sure. So we've clarified that kind of initial what you need to bring in the prior to even coming into the Kelly Centre or using our facility. So that, you know, in terms of emailing, and what we'll do, we'll add the email in the link below as well.
Brilliant.
And the documentations that you need, the fact that there's a language line, and just managing them expectations prior to coming. Now they've got an appointment. They're coming to meet us, then what?
Okay. So they may have an idea already, and they may have seen a school if they're walking around. If not, the staff here can advise them and look at the schools that are closest to them. But we also can see schools that have places in certain year groups as well, which means we can advise them where they're more likely to be successful.
Sure.
But parents can choose to apply for any school, even if it's full. So it's up to them. You know, we're advising them that there might be some more spaces. It is ultimately parental choice where you apply to. But if it's full, you may be rejected. And there are complications there as well in the UK system. Some schools, the local authority manages their admissions for them. But other schools, particularly faith schools or academies, the schools themselves manage their own admissions. So it means you end up with slightly different systems and way of admitting forms. And again, this may seem strange, you know, along with, I know with lots of other things you're learning when you're new to a country, but that's the way the system works here, that sometimes you can do an application for some schools through the local authority, but others you've got to apply directly to the school as well.
And the team will do that for them. The team will. So it's just before we go on to the next one. So a faith school. So what many of the questions have been, those who go to a faith school, what are the expectations of when you go to a faith school versus a community school?
Yeah, so a faith school, I wouldn't want to talk too much for them. And I know that you've spoke to a head teacher of a faith school as part of a later episode in this series as well. So that's great. But for faith schools in the UK, the faith is a central element of the school from my understanding of it. But they are also inclusive of children of all faiths and no faiths as well. So that's something to reassure parents about. They're very respectful and inclusive of the other faiths. They often talk about festivals and celebrations of other faiths as well. And lots of children at the school will be, as I've said, of different faiths and often of no faith as well.
Yeah. Brilliant. So we've established that, you know, when you come into the Kelly Centre, the representatives there will be able to see, you know, what schools are available. We'll be able to check the distance and what like I said, you know, and it's seeing what is, you know, most likely where you're going to get a place.
Yes.
So let's talk about the application. So we've got the documents, we've had a look at the schools available, and you know the options that they've got. What happens in the applications, and what information and what's that kind of next process looks like?
So the staff at Kelly will help you fill in an application. A lot of this is basic background information about your child and your family as well. So addresses, names, perhaps siblings, contact details for parents they will need to get on there as well. Perhaps any information if there are additional needs about the student or the pupil as well. So that they will support you with filling in that form, and they will also help you to submit that as well, whether that is to the local education authority or to the school. There is then a waiting period then, and this, can be frustrating sometimes for families, we know, because often they will want their children in school, that they're really recognising that importance of education, which is great. But unfortunately, there is some time that it does take for this system to work. So it will take a few weeks for you to hear whether you've been successful or your child's been successful and has got allocated a place or not. You can contact us to chase that, but really I would leave it, a couple of weeks before you do, because it does naturally take at least a couple of weeks, if not longer, really, before we hear whether you've got a school place or not.
And most likely they will hear. So when, again, from my understanding, once they complete the application, that application copy is emailed to the parent. So they've got a copy of it. And like you said, waiting a couple of weeks, at least, until you hear back. Now, how will they hear back?
So they often will receive an email. And so that email will come to you. It will be written in English, won't it, as well? And it isn't short necessarily. It's quite formal language as well. So some people may be confident accessing that and understanding that. If you do get a letter or it be a letter attached to an email and a communication you don't understand, definitely please do contact Kelly and the staff here, and they'll be able to help you understand what it says and what the next steps are. So if you do find you've been allocated a place, they can help you understand how to start school, which we can talk about in a minute. But if you haven't got a place, there are still options. We can look at completing an appeal. As well, if that's the school you really want to stay with, we can complete an appeal for the school place, which may or not be successful. Or obviously as well, we can look at other schools and apply for those as well.
So this was going to lead me on to the next part is before we go on to if you've been accepted, what that journey looks like. But for example, if we don't have any places at the moment, it's it's a rejection letter in inverted commas. What is an appeal and how long does an appeal take and what is that process?
Yes. So an appeal, when you're appealing for a school place, you're asking them often to go above their admissions number. And I talked about that set admissions number before. So schools do try to stick to their admissions number, but you can appeal that. When you complete an appeal form, you're trying to put information on the form about why that school is right for your child or young person. So rather than why another school isn't right, it's about why is this school the right school for you? And again, the Kelly staff will help you. They'll fill in that form, not for you, but they'll help you put your words onto that form so that the appeal can be submitted. Once the appeal submitted, you do get an appeal date and you can attend the appeal. We try and liaise with the appeals team to make sure they know that you need an interpreter for that meeting. So obviously you can get your point across if you've got an interpreter there. And then there's a panel when you do attend for the appeal. It is quite a formal meeting in a way, but they are friendly, I'm sure. But it is an independent appeal panel there as well. So they are not people necessarily from the school. The school might be present, but they're not the ones making the decision. It is independent.
Wow, that's brilliant. Yeah. That's brilliant. And the appeal wait approximately can be quite a while as well. So just managing expectations for the parents.
Yes, it can be. It can be quite a while. And this is another thing when, it's making that decision whether it's you have the complete right to go for appeal. But if you're waiting for appeal and not applying for other school places, as you can imagine, this is further weeks where your child or young person is missing their education. So that's something to be weighed up when the family are making their considerations as well.
And how many times can you appeal in an academic year?
So for that school, once in an academic year, but I think they can appeal at more than one school in an academic year. You may know more than me on that one as well.
So in an academic year for one school, you can just appeal that one time, but you can appeal for as many schools as you want. And I think it's so great that, that we can there's you can provide an interpreter for that parent so they can get represented in a fair way, and the fact that there's an independent panel makes the process that much more fair.
Yeah.
So we've gone down the appeal process. I'm quite satisfied with the information that you've given there, and I think our audiences will be as well. Now, the best case scenario,
you get allocated a place.
Allocated a place, which is brilliant.
Yeah.
What happens after that? So, what's a realistic journey? Because I think the big concern is, okay, we've been accepted, meals, transportation,
all the practicalities.
Please talk us through that.
Yeah. So if you do get a place at a school, that's brilliant. And then it's looking at getting started. Again, the Kelly staff can help you again here. So it may well be that you are entitled to free school meals, which many families are in the UK. And there isn't a stigma to having free school meals or a detriment. So if it is something you're entitled to, don't worry that that's going to have a negative impact on you. Those meals are there for your children and young people to make sure that they're having a nutritious meal that day. So there is an application that a family has to do for free school meals. Again, the Kelly staff can help you access this application. They do need to see certain evidence that they can submit with the application for you. It might be evidence of you being an asylum seeker, for example, and that will show that your child or your young person is eligible, and then they can make sure that that's completed, the form goes in, the school knows, and then when your child's at school, they can get that free school meal. Again, as well, be assured that meals in school, they're very used to catering for all different dietary requirements as well in schools. So please be assured that they will be doing that as well.
And religious ones as well. I know that schools are very, very good that way. Okay, so we've got the free school meals. What about transportation? Because there are concerns, if you're at high school or if you're at primary school, and if the school is slightly further away, how does it all work?
So because there is quite a lot of demand on school places in Preston at the moment, we did speak earlier to say it might unfortunately not be the school just across the road or on the next couple of roads that you're going to, even if you're a primary school. And often as well in the UK, particularly for secondary schools, children and young people, they are expected to travel that bit further anyway. So if it's under 2 miles, you are expected to travel yourself, which might, as we said, be a bit of a longer walk. We appreciate that you may well not have access to your own transport, so it may be that that's more of a challenge, but there is that expectation that you do get to schools within 2 miles. If it's above 2 miles, if you're under a certain age group, or sometimes above 3 miles, then there is free transport as well that you can apply for. But this will be, if you're under a certain age, it's a taxi that will come for you and pick you up. So that's more door to door, and probably easier when you're new to country. If you're above 11 and it's high school age, then it is normally a bus pass, isn't it, that's given. So that can be quite challenging, can't it? Because that's the young person there, or the child, they need the confidence to know, what bus stop am I going to be getting? What time do I need to be there? So it could be that you could again ask the Kelly staff, and they might be able to look at timetables and discuss that with you, talk about which streets that you be standing on to catch the buses. But also it may be that as a parent, or you do a practice run with them. And that would be quite typical as well with UK parents. When children are starting high schools, quite often parents, particularly if they're getting buses for the first time, might practice that journey with them so the child feels more confident before they start a new school as well. But we can definitely support with applying for free transport where that's applicable as well, and we can advise you on that. So if you're not sure, because there are a few complicated rules there about different age groups, isn't there, and different criteria, so the best thing is just to ask at Kelly and see if that's a possibility as well.
Oh, that's brilliant. And I think I know some of the concerns are around, and some of the schools in our later podcasts will touch on this, but I know that the centre is quite well versed with signposting our parents and children with food banks, uniforms, and other even places of worships as well.
There's a lot wider support, isn't there, that we can offer here as well? Yes, definitely. So one of the things we do have happening is that we can support the children and young people with school readiness sessions while they're waiting for a school place. So we can help them build their English so that they're more ready to access the curriculum when they start school, but also just build their understanding about what is the school going to be like in the UK, in Preston, when they do start as well. So that makes it, a quicker process for them to settle in, a quicker process to access the curriculum and learn, and also I think just more comfortable for them, so they're not as anxious about that as well. So we have those classes available here, but we also tap into lots around us as well. Some that we do ourselves, as we said about the EAL school readiness, but we also work with lots of partners, don't we, as well? So in terms of if you're one of the adults in the family, want to improve their English, we can direct to different ESOL classes. We have relationships with lots of different classes, don't we, as well? Yep, food banks, that's sometimes a concern that's been raised. And again, we can direct there. Homework clubs, we work closely with the Foxton Centre, don't we? And we can direct to homework clubs there. Also, faith groups, we've had families of all different faiths coming in here. And we know in terms of feeling settled and belonging in a community, if you are of a faith, making links with that faith group can be an absolutely massive impact, can't it, as well? So, we do direct families as well when they ask to an appropriate faith group as well.
Brilliant. And I guess another question is, what cost is involved in all of this? That's one of the big apprehensions. Is there a cost to use the service? Is there a cost to be signposted? Our listeners and viewers want to know if there's any cost attached to any of this.
It's a really good question. Thank you. Now, our work is all already funded. It's funded already, so there's no charge for families for any of our advice or support. We're here to try and speed up families, the children and young people accessing their education. So that's a positive benefit on them. And that's the aim, really, isn't it? So no charge at all for any of those. So please don't let that be a concern.
Yeah. And is there any case or any family that you've come across in your years of working with the Kelly and Ellie Centre, which is a good example that you can share or is close to your heart?
Oh, that's a really good question. Gets me thinking. There's just so many, really, so many. And I know through managing some of the staff at the different teams as well, we get such wonderful feedback from the families, just emails, and they really touch your heart, the emails just saying how grateful they are for the help, but how positive and friendly and helpful the staff are as well. So that makes me, obviously so proud to be a part of that, and just so grateful to the staff who work in those teams, who work in the teams as well, doing that and meeting those people. And I think that's the thing, everybody in the team is really passionate about helping all the families as well. There are some particular families who I've met some going to classes recently as well, and you meet children, sometimes they've got additional needs, and you can just see how much being in the class is helping them settle in. Or we have had students who have been through, it was either Ellie, which is our East Lancashire Learning Information Exchange, which is a sister to Kelly, the one in Preston, or Kelly. And you can see they've been through the classes, the school readiness sessions, they've got a school place, they've got that bus pass because they've gone to high school, they've gone quite a few miles to high school. And then they came back to us a year or so later to ask to do work experience. It was so wonderful to see their confidence, and they brought some friends with them as well that they've made at school. So it was really nice to see them with their confidence built. They were settled into school. They were accessing work experience, which is a normal experience for a UK high school student as well. They were coming back with their friends, and you could see the progress that they made. And it meant we could almost support them with the next step while they were thinking about what will happen when I leave high school, what career will I do. So it's so exciting to catch up with them and see where they're up to as well.
And I think it's wonderful that the relationship doesn't just end in this office. There's so much follow-up that happens, being able to pick the phone up or just email the team at whether it's Ellie or the Kelly Centre. And like you said, even when you're in school, I know your provision with the support of ESOL is really powerful and so empowering, not just for the children, but for the parents as well.
Yes. Yeah, no, it doesn't end when you start school. So sometimes families maybe will have a concern and it might be something they've already spoken to school about and they don't feel it's quite resolved, or they just don't know how to express it or what they should expect of a UK school. Obviously, lots of things are new to families when they're new to country, coming into countries in this situation. So if they would like some support, again, in just maybe speaking to a member of school staff to ask some questions on things they're not sure about, or just to express a feeling that they think there's something, if they're worried about progress of the child, or they think there's been a situation in school and they're not sure how it should have been dealt with, we have community education liaison officers, so they can help them access, again, the systems that are already in school and help resolve situations. So sometimes that's about aspects of faith, isn't it? I know we've had a query recently about students being able to express their faith by wearing different artifacts that they need to wear in school, and we can sometimes help the school advise on that, looking at health and safety, but support that resolution really on those as well. So the support definitely doesn't stop when you're going to school. We're always that ear ready to listen here, aren't we? We also have English as additional language tutors that work into school as well. Yeah. So quite often children that may have come through Ellie or Kelly and we've got into school, we then have other members of staff who can work with them, helping them with their English once they've got into school as well. And we can advise school staff as well on how you can support students, particularly when they're new to country. They've got that culture shock as well. Yeah. There's lots of new things to pick up. You've got to make friends, you've got to feel settled, and you've also got to learn English and learn all the rest of the curriculum, the science and everything else. So there's lots that you can do to support them, and we can help schools provide that support to their EAL students and their new arrivals as well.
Fantastic. I feel like we've got so much information, and I think the start of the journey, from actually even making contact with the Kelly team, the application, signposting, appeals, the additional support, transport, free school meals. There's just so much. I guess, how do they get in touch? How do they contact you? I know you said they can email us, but is there a website that they can access and get in touch with us?
Yeah, there's a website which hopefully perhaps we can share underneath as well on this podcast.
So we will share that.
So the email and the website are there underneath, and you'll be able to access those. And if you're really struggling with either of those, you can just turn up at Stoney Gate and be directed and knock on the door, and they will try and help you or fit you in with an appointment as well. So please do email if you can, or somebody else might be able to support you with that. But if that's a challenge, then you can just turn up as well, and we'll try and fit you in if we can, or if not, give you an appointment. The other thing I forgot to mention as well is even more. So we've talked primarily, haven't we, about school age, so that when you just start in school when you're about 4 in the UK to 16.
Yes.
But we can help as well with early years education. Yes. So there is funding for 2-year-olds to go into nurseries and other early years settings, and 3-year-olds as well. And there's funding for 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds all across the country already. So asylum-seeker families are just as entitled to access that as any other families across the UK as well, and we can help families.
And the team can check that as well.
Yeah.
So one of the things I forgot to mention is what about those students who are starting their first journey in high school or starting their school journey? How does that application work?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So far we've spoke about in-year admissions. So this is when children start school at a non-typical point. So it may be because they've moved house or they've moved into country, but they're starting at a different point when other people have already started school. But we do have set transition points where the vast majority of students and pupils start school in the UK. So we've got reception, which is when children are 4 to 5. And we've got year 7 when children are 11 or just turning 12. And they're the typical transition points in the UK. So if your child is 3 or 4, this is when you'd be thinking about applying for them to start school. And there are set admission dates as well. So you do need to get there quite a bit earlier to make sure you don't get a late application. So if they're 3 or 4, you might want to talk to Kelly staff to say, okay, when should we be applying for a place for reception, so they can start to apply. And these applications are all submitted into the local authority. You don't have to go to a school. They go on a form and they go to the local authority, and you choose 3 schools, don't you, for those as well, a first, second and third choice. And your child's name will then be put into the system and allocated by the admissions criteria along with all the other applications, and they will be starting school at the same point via new pupil with all the other new pupils starting as a new pupil at the same time.
Fantastic.
That's similar, isn't it, in year 7?
Yeah.
Same thing. So when your child is getting to about 9 or 10, and then you might want to be thinking about, okay, well, hopefully they may either be in primary, so they will be applying for a primary school at that point, but you also want to be thinking about where are they going to start when they're 11, going into secondary school as well. So similar advice to before. Contact the Kelly staff and say, right, when do we need to apply for secondary schools? And again, you can have 3 choices. There's often opportunities for all of these schools to look around them as well. So you can help make your choices as well. And you apply for 3 schools and that goes into the local authority. But again, there's a deadline. So it's important to be thinking about it a bit earlier and contact the Kelly staff to find out when should we be applying for high school, or if your child is early years, when should we be applying for primary school?
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And finally, if you could just look into the camera, and if you have any final message for all our asylum-seeker families and students who are watching, just to finish off this episode.
Okay. I just want them to know that they are very welcome. That's the main thing I would say. And that our staff here at Kelly, I know from working with them, have got such a passion to help them and to welcome them into the country and to help those children access education, because we know what a powerful tool education is for changing people's lives. So don't hesitate to come and see us, really. Just come in and we will help you the best we can with education. And as we've said, we'll often signpost to other things and help if we can with anything else as well.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. And it's such a pleasure to have you on the Welcome Journey podcast. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's nothing we can't do.